Well, guys, I think the number of people who are actually anticipating this moment was about one, and that one happens to be within camera shot. But yeah, it's finally time for me to do my year end or more like a mid year late recap review ranking, whatever, of live albums released in 2025. So yeah, this is something that I normally do towards the end of the year slash beginning of the year after, where I just go through all of the new music that's released, within that year that I picked up, and yeah, just like I say, rank, review, and recap all of it. And yeah, this got delayed significantly. So normally I split it up into like two categories. I do like normal albums, and then like I'll do a separate category for like kind of the more oddball releases, the EPs, the live albums, soundtracks. Might throw in some singles, that sort of thing. But I picked up a lot of oddball releases, so I kind of split it up into even further categories. Live albums, I kind of feel like it's some of this generally geared more towards die-hard fans of those particular bands. But I picked up five live albums total. I think it was kind of a combination of like the bands that I'm die-hard fan of releasing albums. Then me kind of running off that high and picking up a little bit more live albums that maybe I wouldn't have normally picked up. I was really into picking up live albums, so I ended up getting more. So yeah, three of these five are basically album playthroughs, but only two of them actually marketed themselves as such. So my bottom live album, I always say that this is all music I'm into. So saying that something is my least favorite isn't kind of that huge of a deal, at least for me. It's I'm not picking it up if it's not something that I'm into. But my bottom album is the one that I said is basically a album playthrough, just not marketed as such, and that is American Football live in Los Angeles. So yeah, the track listing for this is their first album. It's just kind of shuffled around a bit. It does have an extra instrumental song from their first EP, and there's a few guest spots on it, so it does kind of mix things up a bit. I do rather like this gatefold, I will say. That is a projection. For a while, I was kind of trying to figure out if that's like an actual set piece, but it is actually no. I think it's from the front cover that got me confused over whether they had like a set piece of the house replica for this projection. But it's a projection. But yeah, it's just their first album playthrough, which is definitely a classic. But I really love a lot of the rest of American football, and Mike Kinsella's voice, I wouldn't necessarily say it's aged badly, but I don't really feel like his voice is that strong for their older stuff. It's their more newer stuff. Those songs are actually written to fit his voice better, I think. So it's a bit of an awkward album. We got a nice big awkward flip through book with photos, but yeah, this is pretty easily my least favorite live album of the year. Next up, we have my favorite band, Radiohead. One of my favorite albums from them, actually. Hell to the Thief, live recordings 2003 through 2009. So yeah, there's just a straight playthrough of the album. Not really anything that's going to catch you off guard. Even if you haven't seen Radiohead live, most likely you've, at this point, watched live videos of them. So, there are some things that are, kind of changed up and different from the album. Most notably, probably the highlight is the gloaming, when they go into the bass grooves that aren't on the original album. I've always found a A Wolf at the Door kind of frustrating because the original version has organ. It's more guitar heavy. I kind of prefer the organ. But yeah, there's just not really anything that's going to catch you off guard. There's not a whole lot of reason for this to exist. It's not replacing the original Hail to the Thief, I don't think. So yeah, it's not a particularly exciting album, I don't think. Alright, so now we're getting to the album that was the reason why this got postponed so late. That is Me Without You's Live Volume 2. So yeah, they did break up a few years ago, but they're doing a trilogy of live albums. They released 2 of them in one form or another last year. Yeah, this is the weaker of the 2 albums. I was expecting this to be like immediately behind or immediately before the first one. Spoiler alert, Volume 1 is my favorite live album of the year. And I would say this album I kind of feel like has like a lot of really strong highs, and it's the music I like, so it's not really that low, but the lows are kind of ho-hum. I kind of feel like its strongest moments are like towards the beginning and towards the end. It's the middle of the album that I kind of feel like it's a lot more deep cut heavy, and a lot of the deep cuts that don't particularly interest me that much, just songs that, you I'm not really that interested in kind of seeing live. Because, there are those deep cuts, like, you enjoy more than others, and then, you finally get to see the band play live. It's so fucking exciting, like, one thing that comes to my mind, going on a bit of a tangent here, was Gong by Sigur Rós. I think I like that album, or that song, a lot more than most people, and I've seen Sigur Rós like 3 or 4 times, more than, most, well-known touring bands, and last time I saw them, they finally played it live, and damn, that was exciting. I'll say this has got to be one of the coolest things that I've ever got within, like, album packaging. So, I'll go ahead and pull out the kind of side piece to introduce the really cool thing. So, they have these little booklets, a kind of sort of biographical, semi-fictionalized, like, the events in these actually happen. It just might not have happened quite exactly how it's told in here, is at least my understanding of it. I doubt they have detailed documentation of everything, but it says that like before a show, like, they did like a last minute scrolled out set list on a paper plate, and they put in a replica of the fucking paper plate. How cool is that? That's got to be probably at least the top 5 coolest things I've ever got within album packaging. But yeah, probably the best moment out of either of their current live albums has to be what they call Masses of Memphis. They started out with their song Masses of Men. Then they go to Memphis Will Be Laid to Waste by Norma Jean. Not even Me Without You song is a song that Aaron Weiss guested on, and Josh Scoggins, who sang that song, comes on. And like I said, the ending of it is pretty strong too. Has a harp version of Son of a Widow. And then it goes into a 3-song encore that's not written out on here, but does have a song. It has some, I think it's a cover. I definitely don't recognize that as a Me Without You song. I don't recognize who the song is originally by. And I'm probably, uncultured scum for not realizing it. But it has a Stick a String and a Carriage. Pretty cool song that I'm excited they included. And then it also has, God, what's the song? If I Could Be Yours. January 1979. Which, if I remember correctly, was also on Volume 1. And then Volume 1 also had an encore of Seven Sisters, which is included on, like, the main sellers of this. So, given that, they were doing 3 live albums, it's probably going to be about, 45 to 50 songs total, which is a lot, but it's not quite all their songs. I definitely like their repeating a few songs like that. So, yeah, I've kind of rambled on that quite a bit, going on with packaging. I don't remember the color looking like this when I ordered it, but the same thing happened with the other one. I probably messed up on my color choice. And it's been a while since I've looked at this detail in the next album, but I don't remember it having like these mixing notes on it, which is pretty cool. So I'm about to figure out in real time with you if that's what they did with the other album, but I'll show you the rest of the packaging right quick. So yeah, that is Me Without You's Live Volume 2, my number 3 live album of last year. Alright, so all of those albums I kind of categorize. Thomas is beside me, I just kind of knocked the box he's next to over a little bit, so I hope he's not mad at me. All of those are things that I kind of categorize in the, you have to be a die-hard fan to really enjoy these. These last 2 albums, my top 2 albums, I feel like, if you're a casual fan of these bands, I would definitely still check out these albums because they're pretty fucking good. So next is my number 2 album of the year, Flaming Lips, Yoshimi Battles the Pink Robots live at OK Zoo Amphitheater, August 30th, 2024. Celebrating the 40th anniversary. Now, this is celebrating 4 years of Flaming Lips. I believe for the actual album, this was the 20th anniversary of Flaming Lips, or Yoshimi Battles the Pink Robots. Flaming Lips have been around for a long time. Most people kind of, discover them, or, the earliest music that they know from them is from the 90s, but they go back as far as the early 80s. So yeah, just a simple sleeve. I'm not going to pull it out of this plastic because I don't want to deal with it, but it does have a fold-out poster. So yeah, it's just a playthrough of Yoshimi Battles of Pink Robots, but it's such a classic album. But not only that, but there's an energy behind these songs that's not in the studio version. The studio version is definitely a well-deserved classic, but it's very mellow, chill song. I've always enjoyed listening to it after a long hot day in the sun. It's a nice album to kind of put on, just kind of relax. But there's more energy in these songs than there is on the studio version. It's a little bit more dance worthy. I love the opening with Fight Test. When the bass comes in, just it's really good. It's kind of hard to describe without listening to it, but it's an album worth listening to, even if you're kind of just a more casual fan of the band. You already got the original version of Yoshimi Battles with Pink Robots. So as I've already said several times, my favorite album is Me Without You's Live Volume 1, and I shouldn't really have to talk to it about this much because I've kind of already talked about it more with Live Volume 2. But like I said, Live Volume 2 had a kind of the higher of the highs. Its best moments are better than the best moments on this, but its worst moments are worse than the worst moments on this. I feel like this has, that's a good, steady standard for the band, for their live music. What do you know? It does have the notes. The set list is, kind of, it's nice that it's more colorful, but, it's a little bit more straightforward in its presentation. It does say, You Want My Blood on the back for some reason, which when I got it, I was wondering if that was some weird handwritten thing, but that was on everybody's, and, once again, it has the kind of funny, just dropped it on Thomas. He doesn't seem too bothered by it, but, as the funny kind of behind the scenes tour autobiography going on with it again. And this time, colors, whatever you call that. And once again, like I said, I don't really remember being the color that shows, but it is what it is. You know, who honestly cares? It's the music that matters. And yeah, let's go ahead and show the other side of it. So yeah, you know, I'm really looking forward to Live Volume 3, which I assume is coming out sometime this year, probably within the next few months. I mean, I guess it'd have to come within the next few months since we're already halfway through the year. Hopefully, it won't take as long as Live Volume 2 came out. Yeah, that's my live albums from last year. So as of this year, I haven't got enough oddball releases for me to feel like I'm going to need to split it up that far. But I've been getting a lot of quote-unquote normal albums, and a lot of cool stuff's been coming out this year. Having trouble putting this back together. So I'll just struggle with that once I'm done making this video, which I'm practically done already. But, yeah, looking forward to doing this again in a few months for 2026 albums. So yeah, yes, keep an eye out for that in a few months. Yeah, I'll see y'all the next time I do a video.